No. What's going on?
Well, apparently it's in flames, and apparently the reason why is because my French aunt was playing our podcast during a sermon or whatever they do at the cathedral these days. Isn't that something?
I have a hunch that that's exactly what happened.
I hope we get back to the way things were. Anyway, boy, starting off strong here, ladies and gentlemen. This is what happens when we're running on fumes. Seriously, though, quite tragic. A lot of history. Hopefully, they can restore whatever they can. And I hear that that nothing in the interior was damaged. So I guess there's that. And that's good. The original Hunchback of Notre Dame novel, Victor Hugo, was basically just a book about how what's the term? Keeping things in the same shape, like the cathedral. What's the term for that? Like keeping things nice.
Maintenance?
It's like maintenance, but like maintenance throughout thousands of years, like hundreds of years.
That still is maintenance, brother.
Yes, the original Hunchback of Notre Dame novel was basically a very long book about how maintenance of artistic and architectural designs throughout history is very important. But
I think what this actually was had nothing to do with our podcast, which is very good. I think there's a new wave of French black metal is arriving, and they are following suit. The Scandinavian crowd
really starting off
toasting some churches.
Starting off strong here.
Yeah,
I mean it's going to be difficult when you're in your church burning binge to top yourself once you start with one of the most famous European monuments to exist.
The bar is pretty high now.
It is pretty high.
We'll see what's next.
Speaking of high bars, the movie we're talking about, I consider to be a pretty high bar as far as romantic cinema is concerned. It's one of my personal favorites, and I think one of the best of the 2000s. We're talking about the Jim Carrey romp, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. Before we really get into the nitty gritty, Andrew, how you doing?
I'm in a state, brother.
You're in a state?
I'm in a state.
Hey, man.
It's actually what inspired my choice to watch this film. Is I was going through the proverbial It, and I was like, well, may as well get some sort of
artistic mileage
out of this. Yeah.
Because when you originally ran this by me, you said that you were basically going to use this particular episode as just like a dumping ground for all of your emotional baggage.
Oh yeah. Well, luckily for the audience, I have an appointment to do that with a professional, so they're getting spared from that particular fate.
You know what? Once we release bonus content, we'll just record all of your therapy sessions.
Sneak in a recorder.
My therapist is blind, so we could easily do that with me. This will be great bonus content.
Oh, this is
possibly illegal. I don't really know what's
no, because it's our sessions, so we're free to do with it what we will.
That's true.
So we can.
Has anyone ever done that? Just release their therapy sessions for public consumption.
I don't know. Maybe we'll be the first. We'll throw some nice ambient music underneath it. Yeah,
man,
that'd be sick. It doesn't get more intimate than that. I don't.
It really doesn't. Between the audience and the creator, that's pure, just unbridled emotionality. It's not even filtered through any kind of artistic design. It's just dumping your emotions on an audience.
Be on the lookout for our sister podcast, Total Fucking Misery Forever, coming soon. And
a podcast near you.
Yeah.
Anyway, before we get into the movie, I did want to talk about one thing. All right, it's one thing that is very important to the two of us. One thing that we talk about a lot for various reasons. The new Star Wars trailer just came out. Star Wars, what the hell was it called?
It's the Rise of Skywalker.
Episode 9.
Something absurd.
Yoda's Bar Mitzvah. Rise of Skywalker. Yes, which is a title that, as I talked to you about before, does not ring well for me. To me, it's just too many syllables.
It's a big mouthful.
It's a little bit of a mouthful. And not only is it a little bit of a mouthful, but it also makes me just very worried about the film in general, where it's going to go. But what did you think of the trailer?
It was more of a teaser than an actual trailer. Not a lot to go off.
Which I would prefer. If I'm going to be disappointed by the movie, I prefer to be doing it in the theater. All right, I want to live the experience of the Phantom Menace people who saw that for the first time in the theater, and had to pretend that they liked it for a couple of years before finally admitting that it was bad. That's the experience I want. I don't think I've ever actually gone through that with a movie. So like the hype train just being so and then coming out dying inside very slowly. Has that ever happened to you?
No, not as of yet.
Yeah. We just live in such a plugged-in, society that it's very difficult to blindly walk into something unless you're like going into like one of the first screenings or whatever, which I've never done, unfortunately. This one, yeah, it is a teaser. Pretty, just a series of disconnected images. You hear Luke in it, so he's back to some capacity, which I assume would happen. He's probably a ghost or something.
Yep.
Probably a ghoul.
Which is, I know like Force ghosts it's pivotal to the series.
Absolutely.
Like it's
literally
historic.
Since like
it's
like the first one, right?
It's very cheap to me though that you kill him in the previous film and then you sort of bring him back for this. It sort of lessens like the emotional.
No one ever truly dies, Andrew.
Well, still you're lessening like the stakes. You're lessening the impact. And
no, I know what you mean.
I wish that. I know it's a continuation of the original arc, but I wish that they weren't so heavily reliant on the characters. Because bringing back Lando, which we see in the trailer, Leia is obviously still going to be a player in this somehow, despite Carrie Fisher's.
Because she is in the trailer. Yeah. And I have no idea what they're going to do because they didn't try to do any movie magic doubles
like
work
the CGI,
or the CGI like the Paul Walker stuff or anything like that. So I don't really know what they're going to do. They're going to have to write her out somehow. Unfortunately, there's just really a lot going against this film. Which is.
And it doesn't help the very end. Their grand reveal of the Palpatine laugh.
The Palpatine. Would it be great if just he wasn't in it? That was just
to throw everyone off.
Yeah. It was a classic J.J. Abrams lying to you just straight to your fucking face type of marketing.
I would prefer that, frankly, than him reappearing.
Yeah, it would be so confusing at this point. But I feel like it's like he's definitely appearing to some capacity. Because I heard that he appeared at some panel, Ian McDermott, the actor. Yeah. So it's probably going to happen. Although maybe, I don't know, J.J. Abrams literally has lied to our face. Remember when the Benedict Cumberbatch's character from Star Trek Into Darkness was not Khan.
And then it was literally just Khan. They followed the Wrath of Khan, plot point by plot point.
Pretty much plot point by plot point. And he was just trying to tell us that,
voodoo marketing.
Yeah, it's just, exactly. No, Benedict Cumberbatch is playing this new character by the name of this very generic name. It's John Kane. It's going to be great, guys. I don't like J.J. Abrams as a filmmaker, I think, he's talented, he has some visual flair, but he's never that kind of shit. It gets in my head. I think that's run its course, that kind of marketing, honestly, and bringing him back in the first place to do this third movie.
It's so safe.
It's a sickeningly safe choice. Although I don't know if the Jurassic World guy would have been a better choice.
No, probably not. But I mean, Ryan Wilson again.
Ryan Johnson.
Rainn Wilson.
Yeah. Dwight from The Office should have been.
Either one of them. It would have been a bold,
I've been campaigning for this for a while,
innovative choice.
Yeah. Honestly, yeah. It seems like they're kind of backing down a little bit from what they let Ryan Johnson do, which was basically he did his own thing, and he. Since he was not given, there was no actual plan layout for this new trilogy. So J.J. Abrams I'm assuming, didn't give him many notes or anything. He just kind of did his own thing, and it was basically just axing most of these storylines that he didn't seem to care for. Like the idea of the Snoke character or Rey
dies
possibly.
In the most unceremonious.
Yeah, which I still think that's great. I love that. Or Rey having any kind of family lineage. So to an extent, it seems like they're probably going to try to undo some of that for this one. And you could say what you want about some of the choices made in The Last Jedi, but I think at least a good majority of them were interesting and different. I don't think all of them worked. In fact, I think a lot of the characters from The Force Awakens kind of got the short end of the stick in that one in many ways. But I don't know. I feel like if you're going to do that, you gotta stick by it and not undo it in this third movie. There should have been a plan to begin with this trilogy. There should have been an angle. Even the prequels had an angle. George Lucas had an angle. he was just this weird guy who doesn't know how human interactions work, and that was the main problem with the prequels. But there was indeed like a story, I guess.
I feel like Disney felt maybe they had to play it safe, given that this was like their big breakthrough. But I feel like it's backfired.
Right. I think playing The Force Awakens safe was a good choice. And having it feel like the originals was a good choice, and having it more rely on practical effects versus like the CG backdrops and all that. Those are all good choices for the first movie, but there had to be something more, planned. I think past that that would have been a good pull for this trilogy. And I just don't know if they're going to pull this off.
I think the best thing that could happen for Star Wars as a franchise, and I'm willing to give them such a massive amount of wiggle room, because this franchise has been
you're a real star.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel the same way about Star Wars that you do about like Marvel films.
I'm willing to give them these Marvel movies until I die.
But the best thing they can do now is just move past its history with the original Lucas stuff, and start forging their own stories, and start writing their own, and really
they might that Mandalorian show that might be the best choice of what to do.
They're handing out trilogies like left and right.
Yeah, it's it's going out of style.
Yeah, if this is going to succeed, they're going to need to just sort of break away from the formula that they've been following, break away from the characters, and really just try something new, because it's working out now where everything is just a Star Wars movie, and they need to branch out from that.
And that is the thing. Yeah, they need to do less. That's another thing, because even Mark Hamill was talking recently about the possibility of fatigue setting in. I think the executives are finally starting to get it, because they've canceled a number of projects now, and they said they're going to kind of take a break after this new one. And I think that's a really good choice, because I don't know. Like the Star Wars movies were always more, when they came out, they always felt like events in many ways, and that's definitely not going to be the case going forward. So they need to do less. You're right, they need to do something different, but at the same time, what worries me about that angle is just, how in the Die Hard sequels, they basically just took any kind of action movie script that was just
inserted John McClane.
Yeah. That's what I'm also kind of worried about the possibility of just them doing something different.
I would be more okay with that.
I would be.
You obviously have to work in.
I'd be okay to see something like that.
The traits, like the things that make Star Wars, so you got to work those in. But I'm totally fine if you deviate from the tone. If you deviate from like the structure.
But at the same time, then why not just make it its own thing? If it's just confusing. It's like a weird like double-edged sword here. Who knows? Like, maybe somebody will nail it in the future. I don't think this is going to be the movie that does it. No,
at this point, I just want this over with, so we can get on to whatever's next.
I just hope that like this third movie in this trilogy is at least like an enjoyable good time, and isn't something that's so bad that like it poisons the water for any Star Wars going forward.
If this bombs, you're not just ruining this trilogy. You're squandering like 40 years.
Right, exactly. Retroactively, a lot of those movies are going to look worse, especially the ones in this trilogy. But even some of the originals, there's the possibility that those could look worse, and like you're really playing with fire here. I'm kind of worried about it. I don't want to come across as a fanboy or anything, or one of those like weird internet misogynists that hate these movies just because there's like, I don't know, like there's like a black guy in it. I don't want to be those guys. I don't want to be on their side. I want to love these movies. I want to be
I'll be wowed again, like I was like the first time I saw like A New Hope. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's not what we're getting.
Yeah, but we'll see. I mean, like maybe through some literal miracle, like maybe through some Herculean effort, they will nail it, and everything from this trilogy will just make sense and tie together in a really terrific way. That's unexpected and rewarding. But you know what? We'll see. But if you don't have anything else to say about this new Star Wars, let's jump off of something that's both rewarding and satisfying. That's not the word I said last time, but whatever. We're, like I said, fumes people. Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. You ready to talk about it?
Oh, let's dive in.
Oh yeah, let's before we talk about our feelings. Okay, not just about the film, but also about our horrid, miserable lives. let me get some context here about Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. It's a sort of and we're all big fans of Kaufman, Charlie Kaufman, the writer, but it was also a very largely an idea that Michel Gondry, the director, came up with. It was actually more one of his art friends that came up with it as like some kind of weird artistic project. Like, oh, what if you got a letter from a former lover saying that they erased you, something like that. At the time, Michel Gondry was playing the drums for a French pop act called Wee Wee, and
That's a little on the nose.
It's a little on the nose. It's like, yeah, that you're right. That's like, don't know. That's like calling like a mariachi band the Tortillas Cuatros. Yeah, it's yeah, but I don't know. I've never heard it. Maybe it's good. Who knows? But he was talking with this guy, and they started kind of formulated as a movie. Michel Gondry eventually gave his ideas to Kaufman, because they're both him and Spike Jonze, who Kaufman's worked with, probably knew each other because they were both in the music video director scene. And they both kind of broke into movies in a similar way. Kaufman tried to write it. Eventually stopped because Memento came out, and he felt like that was too similar. But then he started again, and the movie eventually came out in 2004 to much praise and much accolades. Speaking of Kaufman and Spike Jonze, adaptation with Nicolas Cage was before this, and he was actually in the running for the lead role of Joel. What do you think of Nicolas Cage's Joel in this film?
Well,
different movie, by the way. Completely different movie.
I feel like he could have pulled it off.
I think he could have, but it would have
been very different.
It would have been very different because I really Jim Carrey's performance in this, I think, is absolutely terrific and understated.
Yeah, he's still Jim Carrey. Like, he still has the sort of like the quirk and the mannerisms.
He does,
but it's like undercut by like a definite like a sorrowful aspect that you've never seen from him. Him being
in the film enriches the character somewhat because you see all of his manic comic energy kind of
it's like bubbling.
It's bubbling, it's there, but it's like it was like it's been beaten out of him by life basically, and then whenever he needs to express himself it kind of comes out briefly,
right. And Nicolas Cage, this is prior to him having to take every role to get out of debt, so at this point, especially in like adaptation, it's a really good nuanced performance that you don't see out of him these days. But like we said, it's a very different energy than what Jim Carrey ended up bringing.
Yeah. It would have been interesting though. Kaufman's other films, adaptation being John Malkovich, Synecdoche, New York, they all, I think, deal with a lot of similar themes. A lot of themes of loneliness,
alienation, isolation,
sometimes existentialism. A lot of weird stuff. We both actually just saw John Malkovich recently for the first time. Which is very strange.
We can get into that a little bit after this, because there's a lot to unpack in
there. There is. There's honestly just too much to unpack for all of these, because they're all very rich in themes, and a lot of stuff happens in each of these films. But as far as Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind goes, when I first saw this, it pretty much struck a chord immediately. It was in high school. And I was in awe over the creativity over it, and just the way it was made. A lot of Gondry's music video kind of influences are there to an extent, in a way that a lot of some of the other people from that scene didn't really utilize as much. And there's so much of this movie just on a technical basis that is so interesting to me. Because there's almost no digital effects. Almost all the stuff that happens when you're when Joel's kind of roaming around his own mind, almost all of it is practical effects. It's like perspective, like forced perspective. It's lights. It's a lot of stuff like that. And I think it really is an effective move, and definitely heightens the aesthetic of the film. Gondry utilizes a lot of camera work that from like Luc Godard and French New Wave, where he's kind of just like not using traditional dollies. He's using like a wheelchair and stuff. There's one point where Jim Carrey literally has to like run off screen, change his clothes, and then go back on screen to make it seem like he is in two places at once. It's really interesting stuff. And it's not, but it's not just the technical thing for me that really struck the chord. And obviously, Kaufman's writing in this, he really, and we're both fans of films with a good ensemble. This one has a really good ensemble, and all of the characters are very well utilized. You pretty much get what they're all about. What do you think
about the cast?
Yeah. Well, anything I say.
Yeah.
I'm tired of gushing.
We'll hop off the cast.
I want you to help me out here.
Yeah, it's big. It's big, but nobody feels like they're wasted.
Oh yeah, no.
You have, like we've mentioned, Jim Carrey. We had Kate Winslet.
Kate Winslet is amazing in this film as well. She got an Academy Award nomination.
Yeah, doing like a deconstruction of the manic pixie trope.
You know, it's actually kind of interesting because this was before that term was coined by. It was some movie critic. I think it was David something that coined it for the movie Elizabethtown, which also starred Kirsten Dunst, who's in this film and is also really good in it. But yeah, that's actually when that was utilized. And yeah, it is a really good deconstruction for a trope that technically didn't exist yet, because Winslet's character in this is very impulsive, and she's very, I guess, free-spirited in a way, but also like her mood fluctuates. Like, you could almost read it as almost like BPD type symptoms, although I don't know if Kaufman really had that in mind when writing her, but you could probably read it like that, and it would make sense that a character like Joel would get with her, and
yeah, someone who feels kind of stagnant in his life, just looking for any sort of injection of any sort of excitement,
and that's where this manic pixie trope even comes from, and all these it's basically all about
just
men,
like nebbish men trying to use women to fill the void in their life.
Exactly, which is not good. Not good. Don't do it.
Women, hot take, are people.
Are individuals and are not here to serve, are not here to entirely serve you and make your life less miserable. That's your job. It can be difficult sometimes, but it's just something you gotta do. And other people can help, sure, but it's gotta be on you. You can't have some lady with orange hair or whatever that listens to the Shins.
Right, you still have to be interesting as a people.
Exactly.
You can't take other people's interesting traits
on these people
and co-opt it. Yeah, but yeah, Elijah Wood is in this playing probably the sleaziest character that he's ever.
Oh, I don't know.
Played.
Have you seen Sin City?
Oh shit! Yes, Sin City.
I would say that edges it out a little bit.
Yeah. Anyway, still very sleazy.
Elijah...
Mark Ruffalo.
No, sorry. I just want to say something about Elijah Wood. Yeah, his character kind of reminded me of John Cusack's character in Being John Malkovich in some ways.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, kind of just like these weird traits of voyeuristic tendencies. Just very clearly lonely and without many social skills to speak of, and is very willing to use stalker techniques through science fiction type means. To get his nuts, and he's just a really strange character, but he isn't cartoonishly creepy. You could almost you could see this. I'm pretty sure I've talked to this guy before. I've probably been friends with him at some point. But yeah, it just makes it makes sense. And Mark Ruffalo, like you said, is in this too. I really like his character. I don't know, something about him it just reads to me as this guy who's kind of competent. And kind of smart, but also in a really, not cartoonish way. His relationship with Kirsten Dunst's character is very nice, relatable, very sweet, and it's also kind of made retroactively tragic by what happens at the end. And yeah, everyone just really does a good job. Tom Wilkinson as the doctor, he brings the gravitas that he always does to that role. Even Jim Carrey's friends, played by David Cross, and I think what's her name? I think it's some theater Broadway actress possibly, but yeah, you get them too. They're briefly in it, but you get their relationship and you get them as characters. Yeah, no, the character work in this film is fucking. It's off the hook. It's out of sight, and just the premise too.
We should really touch on the plot.
Yeah.
We just kind of glossed over
that. The plot really
that.
is kind of the it's the draw, and he really leans back away from the science fiction.
No, elements. I mean we should explain the plot.
Oh, should we?
In a literal sense, we need to talk about the plot.
Oh God, you're right. Sorry, I just assumed that everyone has seen this movie. I assumed I thought it was Titanic, but
don't compare this to Titanic. Titanic's a fucking slog.
Titanic is a terrific film.
4 hours.
It's actually only 3 hours.
The only worthwhile thing in Titanic is the very.
Titanic.
I know. I saw bits and pieces in fucking freshman year of high school.
Titanic
I could tell you the only worthwhile bit of Titanic is when Leo paints Kate Winslet like one of his French girls.
Oh well, let me.
Everything else is just leading up to that, and everything after that is excessive and unnecessary.
Well,
anyway, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. You wanna?
Let me. Well, you know what? We can have this Titanic discussion at a later date. Yeah, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless. Okay, so what this movie is about basically is about this guy Joel. He's really lonely and really sad, and he's writing in his journal about how Valentine's Day is a sham, and me in high school was like, that's me.
Me, this Valentine's
Day.
I was like, this is me.
Yeah, and then basically what happens is he goes to Montauk.
On an impulse.
He meets this girl named Clementine, played by Kate Winslet. Of Titanic fame, one of the greatest films of all time, as me and Andrew both agree on. And she basically introduces herself to him as he is doing the classic, just kind of looking at her briefly and then looking back at his notebook, the classic move. The classic Chad move, and
make them come to you.
Exactly. Draw them in like fucking Bela Lugosi. But she comes in, aggressively introduces herself. She basically makes known the kind of person she is immediately because she's pouring liquor in her coffee and and like punching him in the chest, which I think was an improvised move on Kate Winslet's part. You know what I'm talking about? Where she just
hauls out. Yeah.
Boy, I love it. In some ways, I not only do I relate to the Joel character, I also relate to the Kate Winslet character in some ways. I also like punching people in the chest in an aggressive but friendly manner.
Yeah, to demonstrate camaraderie.
Exactly. Not as some kind of weird masculine impulse to assert myself over the weaker people, but just because I think it's cool and it's it kind of builds camaraderie, like you said. But eventually, I guess they Joel picks her up. They go to her apartment building. He sees that she has a bunch of potato trinkets, which is pretty fun and nice. And
okay, we don't need to do like a whole run. I was thinking just like a general. Anyway, we find out over the course of the film that they had previously been in a relationship.
Yes.
Which ended horribly, leading them to use a cutting-edge service that allows you to erase from your memory the existence of an individual. The main crux, the crux of the film is that Jim Carrey, who has already been erased by Kate Winslet's character.
Yes, which he finds out later. Yeah. And he decides that he wants to do it too. And then the rest of the film, you're basically going through his head, going backwards kind of actually through the relationship that they had. And eventually when he realizes that he doesn't really want to lose these memories, he tries to salvage it. And then we're treated by this strange but emotional
this romp through his memories.
Yeah, his memories. Eventually, he tries to rescue Kate Winslet's memory by going into memories that are not involved with her, like in his childhood. It's a really weird, cerebral thing, but it also isn't ever too abstract for you not to be emotionally involved, and it just works, and it brings up some interesting ethical questions about whether you really should do this kind of thing, like whether you should try to erase painful memories, because sometimes if you do, then you're just going to repeat those mistakes, because how are you supposed to learn from your mistakes if you don't even realize that you made them? And I think it's an interesting ethical conundrum that is brought up by this movie. And I have to assume that this kind of technology will be available at some point in the future, and it might be something that needs to be, I guess, talked about more seriously in the future. Maybe. I don't know. What do you think?
Here's my take. Avoiding the ethics of it. I think that if you are willing to erase someone, after, say, a breakup, then you are a coward and you don't deserve love. Because the price of having something, like a relationship, like a loving relationship, is that you might not have it one day in the future.
Right.
And that's just something that you just need to come to terms with that.
Yeah.
You know? And if you're willing to erase a person, then you didn't value.
Anyway,
there's something very selfish about it, I feel.
I can understand that, and it's very strange how, and I've noticed this, that when people get out of relationships, not everyone, but there are some people that get out and pretty much immediately everything about this person to them is immediately just they're trash. Yeah. Basically, like nothing about the good memories that they had are valid anymore. It's all bad. They're just a vessel of hate.
Exactly, which I can as a knee-jerk reaction, as like a coping mechanism.
Right. And it also kind of depends on the context too of what the relationship was, because if this person legitimately was just lying to you for a majority of the relationship, or like the way it broke off was maybe particularly ugly, then I can guess understand to a point. But at the same time, these you are going to come away from this relationship a different person that needs to be acknowledged, and I think in many ways it could probably be appreciated because you are a different person, and you probably have learned a thing or two by being in them. By being with these people. But like I said, that's not the case all the time. It's just I see not more often than not, but very often people will basically try to do what is done in this movie to themselves, but without the technology. They'll just try to basically just pretend
poison the well.
Exactly. They'll pretend that it didn't happen. They'll pretend this person had absolutely no part of their lives whatsoever. Which I find interesting about human nature.
Yeah. Weak. I'm not willing to cut these people any sort of slack.
I mean, I don't know,
emotionally stunted and just immature, and
I'm not as quick to pass judgment. Although I do find it interesting in the movie. It's kind of alluded to that other people are there for
different reasons.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Like someone came with. So when you do this, you're supposed to bring objects that remind you of the person.
Yeah.
So that they can use it, to track down memories in your head. And like one person brought like things that belong to their dog.
Yeah, they're all waiting. They're all like in a waiting room, like it's a fucking dentist's office, and they all have Joel looking around and sees that somebody had like some memorabilia from a dog. Obviously, the dog patch. I saw one of the other guys had like a trophy that looked like it belonged to like a kid, and who knows what that's alluded to. That maybe the kid died. And I think the question of whether these memories need to be erased is maybe made a little more complicated with situations like that than purely relationships. But at the same time, I still think that probably erasing a part of you is stunting yourself.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's probably just something that I don't know, probably shouldn't be done. And that's basically, in many ways, the lesson of the film, because what we find out at the end is Kirsten Dunst, her character, had like this affair with Tom Wilkinson's character, who is like the head doctor of this entire project. And she had this affair and eventually decided that it was too painful to remember, and then she basically just did it again and ruined this man's marriage. I mean, he ruined it too. It wasn't just her. They ruined the marriage and basically just ruined their lives just because they refused to go through
face
the turmoil.
The consequences.
Face the consequences. Exactly. And I think that's a huge part of this. And I think that these things really need to be, thought about before doing it. In fact, the original ending to this film regarding the main character's relationship, Joel and Clementine, the original ending is basically a little more straightforward with what the messaging is, because I think it ends on a little bit of an ambiguous note. I still personally think that if they do try to go for a relationship again, it's probably going to fail again for similar reasons. But it's made ambiguous, so you can kind of read into it whatever you want. However, the Beck song at the end is very sad, and you'll probably just feel sad at the end, just like I do all the time. But the original ending is basically that you find out that they have been erasing each other's memories multiple times for years. Like you see them, you see them like in old age makeup and shit, and you see that's what you hear. Yeah, it's very morbid, and I think I prefer the ending in the in the film as it is. I think I prefer that.
Yeah, it inspires a lot more hope.
It does. It inspires because I feel like there's always a hope.
Yeah.
That it could always work out, and there always is. But there's still like the very realistic notion of but will it? And I think it's a perfect note for this film to end on, and it just works. And there's really no the original film is way more morbid, and I definitely would not have preferred that.
No,
I don't
think trapped in that like vicious cycle for years on end.
Yeah, exactly. It makes it almost like a fucking horror film.
At some point, you have to look at it and be like, why aren't their friends like stepping in and like wagging a finger?
That's the thing. When you really look at the logistics of what this does to you in the context of the film, you could probably break it apart and have it not make that much sense. Because like what about the friends? What if they accidentally say something about this person because they didn't get their memory erased? And what if you what do you also forget your entire life for those 2 years?
Yeah.
Is that what happened with Joel?
I think so, because remember, he forgets why his car was damaged.
Right, he doesn't realize
why
the
his
notes
journals
in
are
his
empty.
journals. Yeah, so it's to me that practically you're eventually gonna find out that you literally forgot 2 years of your life. You can't really. It just doesn't. It just doesn't work logistically. But that just kind of proves to me that plot holes and that kind of nonsense is not the right way to watch movies, because a movie can be without plot holes and be just the biggest piece of shit.
Yeah.
And a movie can, work. A movie like this can work because of its ideas, because of its characters.
Just the execution is so good. You
don't
even care.
Exactly. It doesn't matter at all. You could almost explain this stuff away through your own logic if you want to. You don't have to, because it doesn't matter really in what the movie is. It doesn't matter. So I think that's a big thing to learn in general. And
stop watching CinemaSins, you goons.
please, for the love of God, stop watching cinema. I know people are still watching it because these things still end up in the fucking front page of YouTube and whatnot. But although the CinemaSin defenders usually just say it's a joke, but when you watch the reviews of the actual guys, it's the same. They're saying the same shit.
They just go to the IMDb
the goofs.
the goofs page, and they're just reading it off from that.
It's so fucking lazy. It's so, and the fact that those videos have to be fucking 30 minutes now is just incredibly depressing, that people are experiencing these movies through those lenses specifically now. It's bad. There's probably one for this movie too. I did not watch it in preparation though, unfortunately, although
I haven't watched any of those since early high school.
It's not worth it. But
I think really makes this movie enjoyable, and we kind of touched on it, is just how well it sort of nails its tone, wherein it's very heavy subject matter. Everything about it is very heavy, is very tense.
It is. But it never gets,
It's never oppressive. There's still always a nice whimsical sort of aspect to it.
Yeah, there is. And their performances of Jim Carrey and Kate Winslet, you get them, and you kind of enjoy the happy parts of their relationship. You buy it, and even when it gets bad, it never falls into complete what I call misery porn, which there was this movie with Kate Winslet and also Leonardo DiCaprio, Revolutionary Road, which is basically about this
Cormac McCarthy book.
It is not?
No,
I don't think
so. Something different.
But basically, it's just a movie about this failing couple, and it's just complete misery for 2 hours. And to me, that's not I don't know. That's not necessarily something I personally.
You can't get invested if you're just seeing these people pissed at each other
all
for 2
the time.
hours.
It's
what are you really losing?
Yeah, exactly. It's please just break up.
Yeah, at least with this, you can see sort of the development. You can see how it started out. It has the honeymoon phase, and everyone's just having a good time, and everyone's gelling, and then they sort of show you the slow decline.
Yeah, exactly. And you see, and like I said, you see it backwards, which is a really interesting thing. And I guess that's where Kaufman was maybe worried that it was too similar to Memento, but I never thought I never really made that connection until I read about this stuff, because tonally and character-wise, it's so different. And it's very terrific. And I was actually thinking regarding Clementine's hair color and stuff. Do you think Scott Pilgrim kind of took some inspiration from this movie in some way?
I can see that. Yeah, because Ramona is like another thing where it's like
it's a very similar situation, right? Where Scott is basically
nettish loser Scott. Sees this gal,
this incredibly interesting and mysterious and impulsive gal who changes her hair color also impulsively. And I think actually even like the crux of the Scott Pilgrim, at least the movie, is about like the ending is fairly similar too.
The movie follows the comics pretty much to a T.
Yeah, but the ending is slightly different, isn't it? I don't really remember.
I don't remember. I've only read it once.
Okay. But in the movie, and possibly also the books, it ends with them giving it another shot, despite everything, and that's basically how this movie ends too. And I can see the similarities, but Scott Pilgrim is also so different in its style.
Literally every other
aspect that it's not really that. It's not too cloying or anything.
No, if you wanna, this kind of movie is sort of it's my like platonic ideal of a film in terms of just sort of tone, which there aren't a lot of other films out there that I can sort of compare. Maybe Her is pretty close.
In tone, yeah, it is actually pretty close in tone, and it's pretty close in its, I guess, feelings of longing in the main. Same
sort of themes.
Yeah, it is, and I can see that because you're right. It is difficult. It's difficult to nail because you could, like I said, make it fully depressing and like gritty and stuff, and have like just complete showcase of misery. Or you could just go too far in the other direction and have it be too quirky.
Thin line.
Yeah.
And they toe it perfectly.
Right, they do. And it's executed perfectly, like in every aspect of the performances, the script, the everything, the tone, it's all there. And if you have not seen this film yet, I do recommend it because it's not we're making it sound pretty cerebral probably, but it's pretty accessible, more or less.
Very accessible.
Yeah.
Which was surprising.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah.
Especially if you've seen sort of other Charlie Kaufman.
Right. Being John Malkovich, I wouldn't call very accessible. Synecdoche, New York, I hear, is not very accessible either.
No, not at all.
No.
It's so dense.
That's
bleak.
Boy, I can't wait to watch that. I can't wait to be depressed as fuck. But in a blissful way, adaptation maybe is probably a little bit more, accessible too, but even that is a little out there too.
Yeah. Not in terms of like the plot, but just
I think the concept itself is out there.
Nick Cage's presence is very.
That could be an unsettling thing. Yeah. In many
honestly, because it took me two tries to get through adaptation, and I think it was mostly because of Nick Cage.
Well, you get two Nick Cage performances.
Yeah, and they're both sort of repulsive in their own ways, but very good. Like, I don't mean to demean. Like I said, he was very good in the movie, and the movie's very good. Upon my second watch, it just wasn't what I was expecting the first time.
Right.
So it's kind of like jarred out of it. My expectations didn't line up.
It's very strange that was your first. You saw that one before Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind.
Yeah. Okay. So the thing was, and I only watched this because you sung its praises a lot. I was expecting
every time I get
just
a chance.
Like I was expecting just Jim Carrey. But sadder. I didn't know anything about like the surreal aspects. Like I wasn't familiar with Charlie Kaufman at the time. So I remember when we sat down to watch it, like the instant they sort of busted out these more surreal elements. It was surprising because I was expecting like a very I was expecting like a very by the book sort of rom-com that just happened to have like Jim Carrey in it.
Yeah. That's interesting that I never ever told you what it was about.
No.
But that's good though, because I was very pleasantly surprised by what the movie ended up being, what the execution was when I first saw it too. So that's good. But I'm really happy we got the chance to sing this movie's praises on the show. And like I said, if you have not seen it, I do highly recommend it, especially if you are in a sad emotional state and want some sort of catharsis. It's a really good one. And you know what? Speaking of sad emotional states, David Foster Wallace.
Rest in peace.
You've been reading some of his work, have you not? You wanted to talk about it. You, as You as a white man, you eventually
man,
you
early 20s.
You had to hit that phase at some point.
Yeah, pseudo-intellectual podcaster.
Yes. So you practically were like
right. So
exactly.
I read a while ago a collection of essays that it was very intriguing. Sort of deconstructions of David Lynch, postmodernism, and how it's been affected by television.
Postmodern neo-macho.
Yeah, but also tennis in state fairs, and so
one of those guys that just has something very complex to say about everything.
A certain je ne sais quoi.
Yeah.
And so I've been meaning to read Infinite Jest, his magnum opus, and just.
Well, good luck.
God, yeah, it's one of those books, sort of like Ulysses, where it's
Finnegan's Wake.
Yeah, it's held in very
complicated.
Yeah, very high regard, and for those real readers only. Yeah. I guess. So I'm working my way up to that.
Allowed.
No, so I read. I think it was his first book. It was actually a thesis for his school when he graduated. Called The Broom of the System.
Wait, college, high school?
Or college. Like his college thesis.
Right. You don't have a thesis in high school, do you?
No. Thank God. I definitely would have failed that even harder. But anyway, so it's also because it was a thesis. It's a novel. It's a narrative, but there were very big like philosophical overtones to it. But the philosophy stuff. Sort of like, Charlie Kaufman movies. It's not like stuffy and unpleasantly academic. It's actually very amusing.
Don't want that.
Like the characters and the situations are very absurd, very, very cartoony. They're not like real at all. Like these are like caricatures of human beings.
Archetypes.
Well, I wouldn't even say that because they're not. You don't really see characters like this anywhere else.
Really?
But but they're just their traits are just so exaggerated that
is it if we're just gonna make comparisons to Kaufman, would you compare it to sort of being John Malkovich? Because I kind of got those kind of vibes from some of those characters.
They're just very one-dimensional.
Yeah, especially Catherine Keener's character in that.
Yeah.
Who, by the way, was so.
Everyone in the movie was vile. We need to talk about that.
I was gonna say she was attractive, man. Like she was looking good.
Oh no, she
was vile. Yeah. But she was looking.
We should actually talk about being John Malkovich after this because we've referenced it a lot and we both have seen it very recently.
Sure. We'll talk about it.
Yeah. And then the prose is actually really good and very diverse. Where one paragraph could be like a very like beautiful and moving and just full of imagery that rivals like most poets, I would say. And the next is just sort of like some outlandish dialogue between college kids, like bugged out on Quaaludes. And in the it touches heavily on like the idea of the self versus the other. And the main character really grapples with the idea that she's sort of like compromised and she's living her life on like other people's terms. And there's another character who is a more like literal interpretation of the self versus the other. And he plans to accumulate mass to such a degree that he takes up all the space in the universe, leaving no space for anyone else. Jeez. And so,
if only.
Yeah, tell me more about the actual prose. It's uniquely written in the sense that it's not just a straight narrative. He does this thing where he sort of works in parts where there are chapters that are like stories written by characters sort of in the narrative. So it's a story within a story. Oh. There are dialogues depicted as like transcripts from like conversations with a therapist, which is our thing.
Yeah, just our thing.
Right.
So there's like different styles of prose.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Cloud Atlas. Maybe. I know you haven't read it, but I'm just trying to latch onto it because I have read it.
So I recommend it. I'm gonna try to tackle Infinite Just next.
Hey man, like I said, good luck. I salute you for even trying because I don't even have the courage to read a regular book now.
It's been sitting on my shelf for a little bit now.
Hey, but it's there.
Yeah.
And that's kind of what it's there for, is just being on the shelf and for you to just subtly gesture to it for any people who you want to impress that are stopping by. and that's eventually when I buy it, that's what I'm going to do with it. I'm going to use it as a coffee table book.
I'll just have it there. Just break your weed up on it.
Oh, yeah.
What book is that? Well, that's Infinite Jest. Have you heard of it? I read.
No, I'll just whenever somebody like knocks on the door, I'll just answer like smoking a joint and reading like at the same time. And then
pardon me, I gotta finish this page.
Yes. And then I just make them sit there for an uncomfortable amount of time. Like,
would you like me to read aloud?
Yeah.
Very stimulating. I promise you.
But and then I won't offer them any of my weed either.
No, of course not.
So I can't wait to have my own place. It's gonna be great. But yeah. So is that all you wanted to say about? I unfortunately don't have a lot to add because
I'm not gonna like pontificate about it. It's
you can pontificate all you want. This is our platform. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
I appreciate our audience too much. Definitely give it a look though.
Right. I saw, we talked about this briefly before, but I saw a video about Foster Wallace talking about postmodernism that I really latched on. I think I really latched onto his ideas about it, and how it basically, especially the postmodern trope of irony, has basically been co-opted by the system in many ways, by television, and now it's no longer transgressive, and now it's it's
like the term postmodernist has sort of become like a phrase that just means things you don't like.
It's very nebulous, but especially these days where
when it first popped out in I think the 60s, the 70s, like the original wave, like your Vonnegut's and like Don DeLillo. They originally used like the irony to sort of, it was more transgressive then, and they sort of used it to undercut the system in a way that nobody sort of does now. It's very ubiquitous, and everyone sort of uses it.
Like TV advertising is basically using it now just for its own sake.
He's co-opted it, yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
It's toothless now.
And when you have like the use of irony for its own sake, without any kind of without any kind of backing behind it, then you're just using it as like as a coping mechanism, basically. And it when there's nothing there, when it's just like a void underneath the layer of irony, then you basically are rejecting a lot of essential elements to the human experience in many ways. I would say that like Vonnegut, he used like his writing was definitely postmodern, but it was also emotional, and it was saying something about something. And I feel like that kind of that kind of breaking down of like the formerly universally acknowledged narratives of what basically what modernism was, breaking those down, you can still do it in a way where it kind of means something and is emotionally resilient. It doesn't need to be like fucking Family Guy or whatever, where you just have like this kind of detached sort of outlook on culture, on history, and all that stuff. I don't think it really needs to be utilized in that way.
Yeah, we've reached a point where, like, if you want to be truly subversive and truly radical, you do it through sincerity.
Yeah,
and sentimentality, which sounds very lame, but
there's also I hear, I'm not like a reader on this type of stuff, but like I think the combination of the two, new sincerity and postmodern irony, is what's called metamodernism. And I think if that's properly utilized, it could possibly.
That's the point. Is still utilize the irony,
right?
But you need like you said, you need to have some sort of foundation behind it. Like it needs to be aimed at something.
Exactly, because when you have just empty irony, that's what internet culture is, and I feel like that's been such a poisonous part of like the world of
literal irony poisoning.
It's irony poisoning. Yeah, like all these these 4chan people, like that's their only, like the only meaning of their life is basically just to turn their nose at
solicit reactions.
That's such a bizarrely empty existence, and it ends in tragedy.
They have no actual morals. Yeah. They don't stand for anything.
Exactly.
They just want to cut down other people.
Right. It's such and like I know there's more to it. Like there's like this all comes from like disaffected whatever blah blah blah. But it's not like that. Really going down that route is such a dangerous thing, like for yourself and for others, as recent events have proved. I just kind of want to talk about that recently. We don't have to delve that deep into dark philosophical territory. At least, not yet. let's just talk about being John Malkovich a little bit, since we both just saw it for the first time.
Right. Okay. So, quick plot rundown here. John Cusack gets a job at a office building where he, through a freak accident, finds a tunnel in a wall that lets you warp into the mind of actor John Malkovich for 15 minutes before being kicked out to a turnpike in New Jersey. Now, most people cannot control John Malkovich's body. They are just seeing his world through his eyes.
John Cusack can, though, because he's a puppeteer.
Yeah, so... Yeah, John Cusack is able to do what others cannot, which is control Malkovich because of his experience as a puppeteer.
And eventually he's able to, I guess, basically live the life that he's always wanted to live through Malkovich.
Right.
And the movie is pretty bizarre. There's a lot going on in it. It's trying to say a lot about identity, it's trying to say some stuff about celebrity, it's trying to say some stuff about loneliness, and I don't really know if I know exactly what these things are on first viewing, but I thought it was a really interesting experience. I thought it was pretty funny on a lot of areas. I thought John Cusack's character going to work at this office building, I thought was pretty interesting, because in many ways it was like this absurd reflection of what it's like to live in that environment, because as somebody who just had some experience living in that kind of office environment, it's fairly accurate in sort of like the reactions that you have to other people, where they can be exuberant friendly sometimes, but it's all usually just kind of
it's like a facade.
It's a bit of a facade. Like, it's like they're not all like faking their friendliness, but they don't you get the
water cooler talk.
Right, you don't get the
like you're forced to be
exactly.
friendly.
You don't really get you don't really feel like they care. Yeah. Like they're clearly about
lacking sincerity.
What they're doing. What they're doing and whatever it is they're doing. And that to me that's kind of captured pretty weirdly well in this film. With like the secretary who can never hear what he's saying.
Yeah, so the secretary is sort of like one of my favorite gags I've seen recently, where the secretary has a hearing impediment but convinces one of the other characters that he has a speech impediment, and he's constantly apologizing because he thinks that he's not like speaking clearly, like he's totally he thinks he's totally incoherent.
Yeah, he's incoherent.
And he's constantly apologizing for that, but the reality of the situation is the secretary is just deaf.
Yeah, and for some reason, no one ever acknowledges this at all. And the secretary will say like completely bizarre, out of left field things, and then when you respond in any way, she'll say, "I can't understand what you're saying." And yeah, so that's pretty funny. And then Cameron Diaz in this is
hot washed.
Yeah,
again,
I suppose
you
so.
took a beautiful woman and you turned her. God, this is you take a blonde and you make her brunette and you give her fuzzy hair and we're supposed to think she's fucking ugly.
I mean, you didn't even know it was her, though.
They did a good job, but the point is they could have just given the role to an ugly person and saved a lot of hassle.
Imagine Hollywood giving a role to an ugly person. Look, we already discussed this. This ain't happening.
And I'm going to bring it up.
It ain't happening, buddy.
I'm going to bring it up every fucking time until we get our due.
What an outrage. I agree, though. Hey, don't pull me into this, buddy.
No, we, the royal we the uglies.
Oh, okay. All right.
No, you're stunning.
Thank you.
You're glowing.
No, you're
I feel.
No,
more...
you're like a snack.
Oh wow, you're the whole meal, bud.
Oh man,
three course.
Anyway,
this movie it features also one of the oddest love triangles that I've seen in film. So getting into it, Kathleen Keener's character is attracted to Cameron Diaz's character, who is John Cusack's wife, but only when she is in the body of John Malkovich. So outside of the body, when Cameron Diaz's character makes a move on Kathleen Keener's character, she's rejected. Because while Kathleen Keener appreciates her, personality and femininity.
She said something about her, like, feminine longing.
Yes.
In the back of John Malkovich's eyes.
Yeah, she can only appreciate her in the body of John Malkovich.
Which is a strange, like, gender-bending thing that Kaufman's working with here. And I don't really know what exactly is being said, but at the same time, it's an interesting thing to explore, especially at this time period.
Right. And then she is totally repulsed by John Cusack's character. until he takes over the body of John Malkovich, at which point they engage in an affair. But at the very end, it's revealed that Kathleen Keener's character is pregnant with John Malkovich's baby. But it's
John Cusack's baby.
No, it's not.
Oh wait, no, it's Cameron
Diaz's baby.
Right.
Because she became pregnant when Cameron Diaz was in John Malkovich's body.
That's right.
And they hooked. It's a whole big.
Yeah. And then there's like the stuff with like John Cusack's boss and the other elderly people, where they basically use his body as a vessel in order for them to live forever and stuff. It's it's so strange. The only thing that I didn't really like about it was I think the ending. It was not very satisfying to me. Because basically it just ends with Cameron Diaz and Catherine Keener like having their lesbian relationship and raising this child. While I guess is the implication that John Cusack is
trapped inside the mind of the child.
Trapped in the mind of the child. Yeah, it's like a very strange.
So he has to witness these two women having their relationship.
Yeah, it's like it's very
their child's body.
It's such a strange ending, and. Not that John Cusack's character is not deserving of such a fate, because he's
like I said, every character in this movie, sans John Malkovich himself, is absolutely vile and self-centered.
Yeah, I would say Cameron Diaz is a little more of a victim than maybe John Cusack is, because she at the beginning is just kind of like a dull, supportive wife who John Cusack clearly just disdains. And Cusack is trying to go after Keener while being married, who rejects his romantic attraction, his romantic advances. But then it gets, like, once the love triangle starts, he gets so psychopathically, like, obsessed with her that he, like, locks Cameron Diaz in a cage with her pet monkey. And, like he holds her at gunpoint and stuff. Like, it gets to a point where, like, this character is probably beyond any kind of
like actual redemption.
Yeah, any kind of redemption.
There's no saving that arc.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He takes it too far. But then it seems like for a while that he's going to win, but then he doesn't. And I don't know. What did you think of the ending?
It was fine.
Right.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a satisfying way to end that.
Because it is such like an absurd concept that only gets more absurd as it goes. It would be weird if they found an ending that was completely satisfying.
Yeah. So. The only, I think, truly like emotionally not even emotionally satisfying, just like, oh, justice is done sort of ending, is if everyone loses again except John Malkovich, who is able to continue his life as normal. But that is not the case. Yeah, the ending was kind of lackluster, but I personally can't think of anything better. So
right.
I can't really levy that much criticism.
Fair enough.
Sort of my favorite thing about this movie, though, it maybe isn't within the film itself, is sort of the story behind it, wherein John Malkovich was selected, to be sort of the main point of this film, sort of without him knowing. There's a scene in the movie wherein John Malkovich crawls into the tunnel into his own mind and is sucked into this weird world wherein everybody has his head. It's just his head superimposed on other people's bodies. Yep. And the only thing I can say, like a Pokemon, is just his last name. So everyone's just saying Malkovich. And so that's why he was picked, because his last name, out of, I guess, all the actors, sounded the best when repeated ad nauseum.
I think some of the studio execs wanted to push like a different actor. I think they wanted Tom Cruise.
I think the quote was, "Why the fuck can't it be Tom Cruise?"
And I think, even as a Tom Cruise stan, I think the movie wouldn't have been as effective as if it was with Tom Cruise. Not just because the name Malkovich just sounds good, but also because it's almost part of the joke that it's like this bizarre like character actor.
Yeah.
That's not like a famous person.
Yeah, he's a very low key.
Sort of
guy.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of a joke that people like think that he was in this movie where he played a jewel thief, but he wasn't in that movie. People are just confusing him with someone else, and it just makes the sort of existential element of this film, I guess, a little more layered. Because if it was Tom Cruise, that's a completely different movie with a pretty much completely different, I guess, more straightforward premise, and it makes it less absurd that people would want to live inside the brain. Because at one point, Keener and Cusack just kind of have the idea of crawling into they use it. They form a business and just have people going for money.
$200 for 15 minutes,
which everyone seems to be completely satisfied with because.
Well, I mean. That's another big part of the movie is just the ability to be someone else.
Yeah,
so, like escape your own skin
live as somebody
and the
else.
appeal of that.
Anyone else.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like not even like controlling the individual, just a chance, just a break from your fucking self.
Yeah, exactly.
Which would be, I'd pay $200 for that. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I'd pay $200.
That's just because you don't have the money.
That's true. That's true. I'm living on a podcaster's budget. But you know what? Yeah, if I had $200, I'd do it. Anything else about being John Malkovich before we close up shop?
No, I would say if you're gonna watch any of the movies we recommended, and I recommend pretty much every Charlie Kaufman film I've seen.
They're all really done their own way.
Start with Eternal Sunshine, then maybe
being
John Malkovich.
Well, no, you know what? Yeah, John Malkovich afterwards, just because adaptation.
It's more entertaining than adaptation, I think.
Yeah, and also adaptation is also
more accessible.
It's more. Its adaptation is also like. It takes place after being John Malkovich, and it's about Charlie Kaufman.
Oh yeah, it's very meta. There's a meta,
which is an interesting.
That's his whole own episode.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing.
Yeah,
but yeah, no, definitely watch being Eternal Sunshine, Spotless Mind, and
then if you're feeling very bleak and just miserable, and your mood not going to lower, then watch Synecdoche, New York.
Right.
But only if you're about that weird shit, because
yeah,
there's literally nothing to sort of latch onto in that film. It's a board experience and anything else.
Right.
But we won't get into that one.
And I haven't seen that puppet movie, the Annalisa thing. Apparently he's into puppets because being John Malkovich puppetry is a very large part of that. Anyway, we gotta head out of here. Before we go though, I just realized that, but I'm going to take advantage of this since we are talking about a movie that is basically telling the story of a relationship going backwards. I never introduced ourselves.
Okay.
And at the end of the podcast, I'm going to introduce ourselves as a gimmick, to save our own skins. And this is all planned. Cut this out.
No, we're gonna do it.
Okay. Welcome to Entertainment Forever. This is a podcast where we talk about all the major figures and major pieces of pop culture.
That's been Nick. I've been John Cusack in Andrew's body. Remember, hit us up on all the social medias. You can find us on Twitter at TotalPodForever. I'm no longer on the internet, but Nick, you're still on things.
Follow me on Instagram at McGetNoided. That's MCGETT_Noided. Andrew, how you doing today?
We'll see you guys next week.
Bye-bye.